tomorrow, nerds. I'm Az, and it's time for another practical effects guide, but, with severe goblin energy, as you can see from my disaster studio. So this effect that I'm set up for here is called Pepper's Ghost. It's a vintage effect. It's used to create transparent figures like you see in Disney rides like the Haunted Mansion, a lot of theme parks. And here I figured out how to do it just in my living room, and so we're going to go over what we need here. This is a skylight that I got on Amazon. I'll have the link in the description of this video. I have it projecting onto the back side of a piece of paper that I've held up with a clamp, and this serves as our background. And in front of that, at a slight angle, I have a glass panel from a picture frame propped up with clamps. It's at an angle because it needs to be facing me or the subject that you want to make into a specter directly, and it is not a complete glass panel from a picture frame because the first time I tried this, I smashed the top of it. I'm very sorry, Dad. Anyway, beyond that, I have my LED color-changing light bulbs that I have talked about here before. I will link them in the description. They are just put in very cheap clamp lamps. I use these, and I do not use a ring light for this effect because you need a lot of direct light, and ring lights make too much light pollution and sort of muddy the effect. And beyond that, I have my industrial fan, the same one I used for the underwater effect. This is totally optional. It just sort of gives ghosts a wispy, mystical, otherworldly look if you have a fan blowing in your face. For the paper I have hanging up as the little background, I put 2 pieces of paper just because I didn't want it to be too terribly bright. You can add or subtract as many as you see fit. I have another little clamp here just to weight it down, make it serve as an actual little background. You really don't need a lot of space, and on this paper you could potentially, if you had a projector that was not just a skylight, you could project a scene or like an actual moving sky. You could use a solid color light. You could even use maybe an iPad and put a piece of paper over it to sort of diffuse the light a little bit, because you don't want the background to be too bright or too confusing unless you're going for a really subtle look. It'll just make it harder for the ghost effect to show up. And of course, an essential part of the filmmaking process, candy. Lots of it. This chair that you see right here is where I'm actually going to be sitting during the filming process, and that's why that glass pane is tilted that way, because it needs to be facing me directly. And now that this is all more or less set up, it's time to give it a go. And if you're filming in TikTok, which you don't have to, but if you are, obviously load up your sound. I would recommend finding a program that allows the front-facing camera to zoom though, because that is not a thing that it can normally do in iPhones. Because I like to use the front-facing camera, flip it around so that I can see the actual camera screen in the reflection of this glass. That makes it much easier for me to figure out where my eyes are going so that it looks like I'm looking into the camera as a ghost when in fact I am not. And then the reason the zooming is important is because you want to zoom in so that no edges of the paper are visible and you just have this starry background. What I then do is go and I find the inverted effect, and I go ahead and invert it so that it's not a backwards image of myself. And that's mostly just for continuity error management. I don't want my scars to suddenly be on the wrong side just because I'm a ghost. My cosplay makeup to be all backwards. I don't like that. The last thing I do is turn on that water light, the same water light that I use for the underwater effect, only I put it in a color that sort of complements the effect, like a green. And I do that last because it just scorches my retinas, and at that point, we're all ready to film. So here I start leaning back, and then I lean into these really harsh lights that I've set up, so it sort of looks like this specter appears from the sky, maybe. And I have the fan going just to make my hair kind of floaty. Sometimes I'll put my hand over the air current to sort of try and control how much I blast myself in the face with air. And I'll put some additional tips in the description of this video, but that's how I do Pepper's Ghost in my living room.